To the north of Skyrim's icy shores lies a misty and perilous journey riddled with glaciers and icebergs, known as the Sea of Ghosts. And it has seen everything from the life cycle of ancient cities and the erection of Windhelm, to the sailors that have devoted their lives to its icy depths, and the tale of Ysgramor's revenge after the death of his eldest son Ingol and their clansmen. This cold, unfeeling, and yet alive body of water is watched over by a lighthouse. During your travels in Skyrim, you might have discovered this place and thought it was no more than another boring cabin in the woods to explore if you had nothing else to do. But if you do decide to investigate, what you will uncover is undoubtedly one of the most tragic things to happen during the time of the Dragonborn. Welcome to Frostflow Lighthouse. Greetings, travelers. I'm the one they call Time Bomb, and while today's story is honestly horrifying when you look at the finer details, I'm still very excited to tell you all about it. And it starts at the footpath leading up to the lighthouse, which made me feel really small as I got closer to the top. And besides a dead horse out front, the lighthouse fire was still burning, so maybe friendly?
Jesus Christ.
Okay. Not to alarm you, but the first thing I'm noticing is that there's some blood on the floor here. So as soon as you get into the living room, the main centerpiece is a Redguard woman named Ramadi in her underwear, with an axe in her stomach, and a Charis sleeping peacefully by a cozy fire. And when I approached Ramadi's body, my screen was graced with one single miscellaneous quest: find the source of the murders in Frostflow Lighthouse. With all my years of knowledge doing detective stuff, I know this crime scene can only mean one thing: that the letter S in the word murders means Ramadi and this Charis that I thought was sleeping are both, in fact, dead. And we have to avenge this widowed lady and her pet Charis by finding their killers. Let's search her body, because surely there's something hiding in one of her many coat pockets to unfold this mystery. No, you're being creepy! I searched Ramadi's remains and found that she was hopefully just laying on top of the journal of someone else named Habd? Sick name. Looks like the discarded letters of a Hangman game. In this journal, we learn the origin story of who moved into this lighthouse. Habd is a Redguard sailor who had spent his life sailing from Hammerfell to Solstheim and back, until he decided it was finally time to settle down with his wife Ramadi and purchase Frostflow Lighthouse. It may not have been the best choice considering the harsh weather conditions and occasional leaky ceiling, but Habd and Ramadi seem pretty happy with their new home and their new life. We are then introduced to two new names: Mani and Sudi, their children. Children is a term used very loosely because they're adults, but Habd wants them to grow to love the lighthouse even though they're well on their way to forging their own path in life. But tensions were rising in this household as Mani and Sudi would bicker back and forth, which Ramadi had also gotten an earful of from time to time. And then that's when things started getting a little strange. Ramadi started noticing things were going missing in the cellar, and Sudi claimed that she was hearing noises from down there. But Mani wrote them both off and scorned his mother, saying that she's gone mad from the isolation, and it was ridiculous that she's always wanted to retire here. Another journal entry, presumably days later, Habd writes that Sudi keeps insisting that she hears scratching coming from the cellar at night. He thinks she's just trying to troll her mother, but just in case, he decided he would go into town and get a few traps from the market. Those traps would never even make it inside the house though, because Habd had a surprise waiting for him just on the other side of that door. Habd's next journal entry documents his thoughts as he enters the lighthouse to the sight of his dead wife on the ground and, as he describes, a horrible bug-like creature ransacking their home. He managed to kill it, but by then it was too late. Habd had just lost his wife, and his kids were nowhere to be seen. With that, Habd went to the cellar, locked the door behind him, and plunged into the belly of the beasts in hopes of saving what's left of his family. But first, there is a couple more things we have to investigate in the other first floor rooms. Now, the next room I set foot in was the kids' room, and while looking back on the footage, I noticed this book here, which turned out to be Sudi's, so let's start with that. The journal starts with Sudi complaining about how she hates Skyrim. She misses the big port cities and the hustle and bustle that comes with it. She would even take being a cabin girl at sea again over being locked away in a Skyrim lighthouse. 2 months would go by until her next journal entry, where she would continue to complain about how there's nothing to do but also mentions that she can see the College of Winterhold from the top of the lighthouse. But her father says that magic is only for Daedra worshippers. She also wrote that Ramadi had recently snapped at the kids during dinner one night, accusing them of stealing things from the cellar, the same cellar that she's noticed the sound of scratching from late at night. Then a couple journal entries later, she keeps hearing scratches. Monty doesn't believe her, and Hobbs had gone to get traps and poison from town just in case it was skeevers. All the while, the scratches were supposedly only getting louder. Moving over to Monty's side of the room, he's got a pretty normal setup. A nice room temperature Nord mead sitting next to his bed for that 3 a.m. Mojave Desert moment. Some clothes and an axe on his shelf, a troll skull, and also a shit ton of blood on the ground that I didn't notice at first. But what we're looking for over here is actually in Monty's knapsack, where I found a note from Monty that seems to have never been delivered to Sudi. In this letter, Monty's basically putting his foot down, telling Sudi that he knows that she's lying about the scratching and she's just trying to keep him there longer, and he can't stand being in this lighthouse another day. Finishing it by saying he's only gonna stay until father gets home, and then he's heading back to Hammerfell. When I went over to Sudi's side of the room, the only information I could get from or about her was that 1, she likes purple mountain flowers at a puzzle piece level. And 2, the copy of Immortal Blood by her bedside tells me that she's been spending her abundant spare time just reading vampire smut. Why is that the go-to, ladies? I'm just curious. Brother. The final room I'm going to explore is the master bedroom. Upon entering this room, the first thing I noticed was a book on the topic of Aedra and Daedra laying on the table, which goes to show that maybe Hobbs was a bit of a religious fanatic based on Sudi's journal from earlier. Other than that, it's a pretty normal bedroom, some potions of resist cold sitting on the dresser to help the Redguard family ease into their new frigid life in Skyrim. But what we're specifically looking for is Ramadi's journal that's sitting on her nightstand. In it, she starts off by saying she's kind of blown away that Hobbs has finally bought the lighthouse of their dreams, and she's just thrilled to figure out where all of her possessions should go. And in the very next entry, she complains about how her favorite cooking pot is missing, which I understand that. I get pretty worked up when I lose my pot too. And while she sees that Manny and Sudi seem to be unhappy, she just wants them to stay for a couple more years until they set off in the world, because Ramadi can see that Hobbs is getting old, which leads her to seemingly regretfully mention that Hobbs has once again requested that when he dies, she would put his bones in the lighthouse fire so he can look over the ocean forever. Journal entry number 3 was pretty short, just more complaints that their kids are getting on her nerves because she can't find some old keepsakes, and she thinks Mani and Sudi have possibly done something with them. Doesn't make a lot of sense in a cooped up little lighthouse. And finally, Ramadi is getting tired of hearing Sudi talking about the sounds coming from the cellar at night, and she quivers at Mani's mention that it could possibly be skeevers. But Ramadi was just happy she managed to unpack her favorite urn in time and set it on the fireplace before whatever's going on managed to cause that to go missing too. And that's the final journal entry. Also, another unrelated footnote, I happen to notice there was absolutely no coin laying around their house, so they must have been really dirt poor before this tragedy took place. Alright, now it's time to break my detective character I've kind of had going on up until this point, because my next impulsive decision actually led me further into this mystery. When I read that part in the journal about Ramadi's favorite vase, it was almost as if the vase itself was whispering in my ear. Fuck with me, Bomb. I'm a prized possession, and I might have some moon sugar or gold in me. Damn it! It's just a bunch of gray powder. Why does that shard have a date on it? So anyway, I opened the urn, and to my surprise, I found the key to the cellar and nothing else. Then I stole their torch bug on the shelf. What? I've got a collection to complete. When you unlock that cellar door, the situation immediately looks grim, from the stairwell filled with bear traps to the room right at the bottom that contains 2 baby Charis. These little guys are just the beginning of what's to come, and as we follow in Hab's footsteps, we walk through the hole in the cellar wall into frostflow abyss. Walking through the first icy chamber, it's almost hard to avoid tripping over the family's belongings that the Falmer dragged into the hole in the wall like a bunch of sugar heads while everybody was asleep, including a candelabra that still has all 4 candles lit, but it's laying there like it hasn't been touched since they stole it.
The fact that we pulled that off, even today, I cannot tell you how that works.
And after failing in mandible to longsword combat by 1 bite from a baby Charis, It was then I knew I am not going to have fun. And from this point on, you're in full swing Falmer dungeon crawl mode. Charis, Falmer, terrifying Vietnam era traps, and just as I was starting to get a grip on the situation, I came across our second casualty of the night. As I enter the next chamber, I find Monty's body laying atop a blood-smeared boulder right underneath some sort of Falmer altar. He had no notes or journals on him, but the manner of his death is enough to give us some sort of idea. So let's press on into a uniquely horrifying room where Charis, Falmer, and spiders are all just roomies hanging out. It's like band class in this freak show over here. Get a load of these fucking theater kids, am I right? I hated when I had a roommate and I tripped over dude's egg sack on the way to the bathroom at 3 a.m. Then this was about the point where I was piling on death after death because everything here was just too belligerent and numerous. Then there's a point where you're walking down a corridor and it leads you to my bong water when I forget to clean it before putting it on a shelf. And if my suffering doesn't show just how hard these Charis are, especially with the combat mod I have on, 3 Charis managed to take down my hero of Sovngarde. Their poison is no joke and I barely survived jumping down into their egg pit. No. Wait. But once you escape with your life, you get all the free eggs you want. And just in the next room over, for the first time since the Taste of Death video, I got the shit scared out of me again. Which that made me a little angry, and then I remembered I'm the main character in this story, so I got a little squirt of confidence. Time to rip and tear, baby.
I'm gonna kick your ass.
I'm sorry. Finally, after a long, hard battle with that fucking freak of nature, which required summoning a flame atronach to take it down, the battle came to a fiery end with the death of Big Mama. And just like that, we've completed our one and only task that we were given for this terrifying journey. All of that, just for a footnote in your miscellaneous quest to be checked off. And upon searching Big Mama's body, so we found their dad, and finding his remains made me realize that there's one person whose body I haven't found yet. And that's Sudi's. Maybe she escaped, right?
Wrong!
After circling back around, I found a gated-in area, and sure enough, it was Sudi's body on the other side. And while her death might not have been the most visually horrifying one, her final notes paint a picture of her sitting in this cell as she's reunited with her father, only for him to be bitten by a Charis, which made him badly feverish. He mumbles about Daedra as she tries to care for him just before he's taken away by the Falmer, never to be seen again. His final gift to her? A dagger, which she used to, let's say, tie up the final loose end in this agonizing story. And what's most horrifying to me is how in her final blood-stained letter, she mentions that others were brought down here into the cave too, just before leaving this world as one final scream echoing off the cavern walls. And this is just one of the many dark, twisted, and yet efficient Falmer tribes living in harmony among the Charis and spiders, all of which is just below the stone of your cellar floor. And with that, there's one true final step to bring this tragedy to an end. I emerged bloody and beaten from the basement, climbed the stairs to the lighthouse tower, and cast all that remains of Hobbd into the lighthouse fire so that, as per his final wish, he may watch over the perilous sea of ghosts forever.
Thank you for watching, and give me a
bad luck to kill a seabird
in the comments if you made it this far. And big thank you to the channel members because you make Time Bomb very happy by believing in his
highly educational and respectable content.
Watch this, guys, tell someone you love them, and I'm gonna go watch over the Sea of Ghosts now, but Time Bomb plans to see you very soon. I'ma head out. Sorry.